Um,
Yes, John Malone, here we go. We're going to talk about you had a slight military career we're going to be talking about later on, okay?
yes,
And you were a military man, and I could see all the discipline in you over the years. But anyway, but before we do that, we're going to talk about you took over Spot Dog Food after being its salesperson, and I think sales manager, and you made it a huge success. So can you tell us about that?
that's right. Yeah, well, um, I was a sales manager, home and export for Spot Pet Foods when it was part of Clover Meats years ago, and I was doing very well with it, and I contacted a lot of people in the UK for to try and get their own label. I got that own label for H. Williams. They had supermarkets here, and they were a good firm, and I got the own label for them. So I used that as a vehicle to try and get own label, or even get the brand Spot into. This is years ago, and so but and I was interviewing for a man for the West and a man for South one week. And when I come back to Dublin the following Monday, when I was going to be calling them up, I got the word that the place was going to close down. And me
Okay.
after interviewing the previous week, so that's how sudden it was. But then, so I changed ship and then was in the insurance business. But when I retired early from that, at 58 years of age, and I got a couple of years at it, and I have a pension from that. But then I started. I had already registered the Spot brand in '94, and by the time '96 come, it was already registered in my name, and I with the accountant, I Spot Pet Foods Limited, I called it, and it was registered, and I paid money then to get it designed, to get paid £2,000 to get a design for the tins. I had beef, which was reddish, a reddish label, and a chicken which was blue and green for lamb. And I started off. My first order was with a supermarket, McHugh's in Mullingar. I collected the dog food from C&D, and I had a trailer as well. I collected 60 cases. I had ordered 10,000 cases, and that was the order I made for them. And so I had 60, and I called, and on the way with the thing, I called into McHugh's, and I knew the man there, own McHugh. He was a good friend over the years. And because he gave me an order for 10 cases, that was my first order. And subsequently then I as I say, I had sent out photographs, good good color photographs of the tins, and a letter that I got scripted by a former journalist that was specialised in that type of thing with the Irish Times. It cost me, I think, €250 for that, pounds. But it was worth it because it was geared in such a way that it was good. So I sent that letter and a copy of the colour photograph of the tins, and that I would be calling them in due course. That this was, the letter indicated was very well put. And from that, then I was able then to call on them, and they were expecting me. And I got orders. And I got orders from ones that I wouldn't have sent them to. I sent them to the all the multiples in the country and the wholesalers, all the ones that I kind of knew, but you did know. And I started off, and I got orders right, left, and centre,
Wow.
because I knew the people from some of them from down the years, even though I was out of it for a nice few years, to be honest about it. But when you have a good reputation, it's still there. And so I got orders all over the place, and I got listed with Super Value after 6 months of starting from Cork, and all the super values that they supply. The fella in the west was as thick as a double ditch, and you couldn't get through to him.
Hmm.
And I let him have it at the time because I said, "That's extraordinary. You have every other foreign product, and here's a brand leader, and it's in Cork, and you refuse to stock it, and yet supervisors in the West here want to stock it." So there was no point in wasting it. You'd meet people like that. And he was one of those ones. He was just dreadful. You couldn't get through to him at all. But I still supplied other supervisors direct in the West without him having nothing to do with it. And then the ones in the Cork, I called all those supervisors and centres. They could stock it as well, supplied from Cork. And I got them listed in all sorts of places, and particularly in Kilkenny. Caulfields, I think, the were the crowd there. They owned about six different supervisors, and I got on very well with the staff, and I got great space, and it went like hotcakes. And I had one in Enniscorthy. I gave them some free tins, and I got a big display, an end,
But
which is
how
kind of
how
normally cost money.
you had competitors like you had Lassie, you'd Pal, you'd Pedigree, okay?
Oh yeah, but I had all these pedigree pet foods. They're advertised, they were advertising morning, noon, and night, and they had the monopoly situation. Their first factory, believe it or not, was in Clonmel. Their first factory in the pet foods, and in Clonmel. Fine Gael was in power and Dillon was the Minister for Agriculture. He was in Iceland or some country, and apparently the pet food that was produced in order some people was using it and eating it as food.
What?
But that's stupid. And Dillon, in his stupidity of Fine Gael, what would they call it, idiot. And if he didn't didn't he interfere with pedigree pet foods or whatever they were called at the time, and to relocate it from there over to Melton Bow and Mowbray in Britain, and give him plenty of employment and exporting them all over the place and exporting them to this country when they could have been produced here. So our governments were never up to much, even going back. In 1947, Spot was founded, Spot Pet Foods, and I had that on the label as well. Established 1947, even though that's when the brand was established. So the people in Dublin and where it was at the time, O'Keefe's and Spot, they were ahead of their time in some ways, weren't they?
Well,
They
yeah, I just want
started the
to
tins and that.
I just want to go back. They were very much ahead of their time, okay? Because a lot of people
Yeah,
wouldn't have probably bought dog food for the dog. They would have given them the scraps from the table.
that's right. Yeah.
No, but I want to go back to you. You were saying the people were eating the dog food as food. What was that? Can you just go back there?
That was years before when this the only dog food at that time was in was called Irish Chappie or something because they had the Chappie dog food which is a cheap one. They'd have Pal the dearest one, Lassie middle, and Chappie and Poor. That's the tins, and then of course they produce bags as well, and so like they covered the whole market and Ireland would have been widely praised as an agricultural country. But by Dylan doing what he's doing, and I think he become Taoiseach eventually or something. But anyway, and he was from Ballyhadere and they had a drapery shop there. I just know about this history. Anyway, this is what he did, and he spoke with a kind of an upper class English accent, believe it or not. Whether he was educated there or what, I don't know whether he was type. But this is what he did, and he we lost that pet food international brand. It was actually owned by the Mars family. Did you ever hear of Mars bars and all that?
I did. I ate them.
Yeah, well, no, that Mars, they bounty and all those sweets and Mars, and they call themselves Master Foods now. That's the Mars family. They're billionaires, and they're family that live in the United States. It's still privately owned, believe it or not. It's an international company, and they're in all over the continent as well. Because I come across them in France and any other country I was ever in. Uh, so um, so suffice to say that the spot we're trying to get established. But when I was doing it now at the time, just to give you a bit of the history in the UK, unfortunately, it was during the troubles in the six counties, that trouble, and there was bombs going off in England, and it didn't do Irish products any good. For example, I know if we used to produce gatto cakes here, and I knew the sales manager there, was a marketing manager, and he supplied cakes, own brand cakes to multiples over there. And he had an awful time during that period dealing with them because of the atrocities that the IRA were involved in. So these affected business in this country, by the way. And along with that, we had strikes here, bank strikes, electricity strikes, oil strikes. We had you had to queue for petrol. So it was a very bad time for companies to be able to stay afloat. People don't know about that, but I certainly know about it, and I could talk about it for a wet week. What we had to contend with, the damage that this trouble in the six counties where Britain has its snout in, and wherever they have their snout, we suffer down here. You
Now,
know,
I
and don't
want,
forget there was hundreds of people. There was not hundreds. There was people killed in Talbot Street and Earl Street and
the
Monaghan as
Monaghan
well.
Bonhams. I just want to say
That's
to you,
right.
in your article there of Spot, which is a great
Yeah,
article, and well written, and you made a few comments in it that I want to talk to you about. You mentioned
yeah.
the dumping commission. What was the dumping commission?
On Commission Dumpard, we had that to try and have some control over the stuff that was coming into the country, maybe below cost. And I had deals with them and brought a case against Pedigree Pet Foods that they were putting their stuff here below cost and proved it. And so they put a 6 months. They weren't allowed to import it for 6 months. So I did well during that period because so their card was marked. And another thing that I found it at that time too, and though it's not on that, but we have other publicity about it, was the Pet Food Manufacturers Association. And another fella that produced Pedro and myself started, and Albert Reynolds was in it. And so I was made chairman of the Pet Food Manufacturers Association, but it didn't last. I was well positioned to do very good with what I was at, that I could maybe eventually start my own, which was what I intended to do. But unfortunately, bloody well Spot and Clover Meats closed down. Clover, there was over 1,000 jobs lost with the closure of Clover and Spot and all the rest of them. So it was a very bad time in business in some ways. You couldn't, no matter how well you were doing, you didn't know if the rug was going to be pulled from under your feet before you had a chance to get going. Do you know that type of way?
Yeah,
So when I was doing it myself, I had no sort of reins stop me. And off I went, and I'd be goodness, I had it all over the place. North, south, east, and west. And except for the six counties, of course. I had it up in Donegal. I had a map. So when I was doing it for 12 months, I could see my cash flow was going to be under strain. And I had two companies earmarked for to become involved. And one of them was Connolly's of Goresbridge, and they become involved and they took over all the customers that I had. And I got a deal from them that was satisfactory. But over the years, they changed the deal and then I was enjoying commission. So, and a good size commission, and I did very well out of it. And so I was selling their stuff then as well, and they wanted the spot and they produced a spot bag, and I got the first consignment of that uh, in a van, 70 bags, and I got it in into places down the country. And the way I did it was, I did it on a sale and return basis. And if it was sold, and not alone to sell out, there were some of them were looking for 20, 30, 40 bags at the spot. So I put it on the map.
Okay.
But do you think you get thanks from the like of the
What,
people that did?
so you,
And now the spot's doing very well still. I see it in wholesalers. I see it in the local co-op here. They buy direct from Red Mills, and they have various other dog foods from Red Mills that I would have sold. And they have a fair bit of spot. They've two varieties of spot. They have 10 kg and 15 kg, and a couple of different varieties. So the spot's doing well for them.
so John Malone, I just want to say to you that you were traveling all around the country, and this meant
Was.
that you were probably a workaholic, and you were trying to sell it. You were carrying it in the van probably as well, were you?
I was. As a matter of fact, I was carrying in the van. I was loading it and selling it, and then wearing two hats, getting customers. So I did all that, and then I did the books. I had a bit of a rest. I finished at about 6 now. I wasn't there after that. And when I'd be down the country, I'd have a rest and I might have a snooze for about an hour. And then I was up and I did the books. And then I looked at the news at about 9 o'clock. And it wasn't long after that when I retired because like I was doing a fair bit, but I didn't kind of overdo it. I stopped and eased down. And when I did the books, like you have to concentrate. So I was able to balance my books even at the end of the year, which was August. I could have the whole thing done in about 5 days, the whole rigmarole and the profit and loss and all the rest of it. I was able to have that done. So the accountant, all they had to do was um was just they didn't have any work to do except and take my figures and produce the profit and loss and all the rest of it. So like I was able to do of a storeman, order the stuff. As a matter of fact, I had a depot in Carrickmacross, but I had places elsewhere. But I had one then in Carrickmacross when we moved down there, and because most of my customers was in the country. Dublin is awash with supermarkets, so you were wasting your time in Dublin. In Wicklow, I had plenty of customers, and I had Pettis of Wexford had five good sized supermarkets, and I did great business with them. They used to want every fortnight, but I was able to do it every month, and I did plenty of business with them. So really, I was on the go all the time, but I stopped. I stopped at 6. I'd be up early, but I stopped at 6. And I often got up at 6 o'clock in the morning here, particularly on a Wednesday. The van full, a Mercedes Sprinter. Now, not the long one, but the other one, the big one. But not that. And I'd have that. I'd have 90 cases of tins in it. I'd have 70 bags of spot. I'd have red mills. I'd have this, that, and the other. And 2 kg pet. I wanted them to do a 2 or 2.5 kg spot. Do you think they'd do it? But that lights out business. That is the ones that would sell their own product. And it wasn't a brand, it was just called Pet. Spot is a brand.
Yeah.
If you Pet is not a brand, just saying Pet, it's not a brand and it was called Pet. Wasting their time with such a name. And but anyways, they wouldn't do the 2.5 kg spot, which would they were customers were looking for it.
Okay.
Can you
I just want
imagine?
to.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you were going around the country. You were manufacturing it in C&D Pet Foods. Now, C&D Pet Foods, I got a tour of the entire factory in 1985 by the engineer who was designing all the machines, and it was quite an incredible setup. I remember thinking, "Wow." this engineer
correct.
actually designs these machines. And so anyway, but Mace, who owned it Mace? Because you had the distribution rights with Mace.
Mate, well, you see, Mangan wholesalers now, for example, in the West, it was Mangan Brothers supplied all the May shops. Like they were supplied by Mangan Brothers. In Dublin and other parts, they were supplied by amalgamated wholesalers in Walkinstown, and they supplied Mace and supplied Spar shops as well. And I think then eventually they were supplying Laundus, because Laundus had a place in Crumlin Road, and a did good business with them. But their business must have closed a bit, so it was amalgamated wholesalers in Walkinstown as we're doing. And by the way, amalgamated wholesalers owned by South African companies, so they're not really Irish, you know. And yet they're
Okay.
supplying all Irish stores. So we've a very peculiar country as regards who owns what, and I just happen to know that Mangan Brothers is gone. It was taken over by who was it taken over by? It was taken over by another crowd, and they're gone too. A crowd in Portlaoise. A fella calling his surname was Lord, and he had wholesalers, and he bought Mangans. I think he bought Mangans, didn't he? Or was it Garvey's? No, I think it was Garvey's. But Mangas went, and they were taken over by some other crowd. That's a monopoly situation. And so I don't know who said, probably amalgamated wholesalers are supplying the May shops, but they're not. It's changed. Lucky enough, when I was there was some chance of doing business. But the more monopolies you have, the less chance you have of doing a business. It's the independent stores is the bedrock of doing business, and it was the way it was years ago. Spot was supplied. All the small shops in the country did Spot, had Spot. They got it from the wholesalers. Even chemist shops. I used to supply May Roberts. They were chemist wholesalers in Cavan, and they used to take I think 50 cases every so often. They supplied chemist shops. Chemist shops sold it. So this is going back a bit, but in my time then, as I say, I got it into plenty of places. But for example, Pettits now are gone, and they're still owned by Pettit Company, but they're gone to Super Value. So you couldn't get into them now the way you could have got in when I was doing it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it's always a danger when you have too much monopolies. You can't supply them. Their terms are you might often said to them, if I give it to you for nothing, you probably want a long term agreement. You know what I'm saying?
So I just
Um,
want to say to you that like as I'm saying, you were getting them manufactured in C&D, and then you were driving around the country. You were kind of two hats, as you said. But how many
Three
hours a
hats.
week? Three hats and probably four as well. But how many hours were you working per week, do you think? In your peak
Well, I was working at least 12 hours a day because I'd start early. And but then I'd finish. For example, in Boyle, I'd be finished there, and I'd go and have a drink with my friend Christy Wynn in his brother's pub, Tom, Lord of Michelin, and we'd have a drink there and a chat, and we'd be yapping until 1 o'clock in the morning. And then on Friday, I did a couple on the way back. When I was coming back, I did a couple here, there, and yonder, and I wasn't, polluted or anything. I was able to didn't overdo the business, and and then I'd be back and be back in Carrickmacross by maybe about dinner time, and I'd load the van. So
No, but
I
what I'm trying to get
had
at
a
here, what I'm trying to get at here is okay, that
yeah.
self-employment, right? Okay, were you working a 40-hour week? Were you working a 20 hour, 70 hour? How many
Oh,
hours
I'd
would you
say
think?
I'd say I was working a 60-hour week,
Okay,
but I started early and I'd finish at 6 because there was no point in going in any place after that. And I'd be finished before 6, but I'd be staying then where I'd be staying. For example, I'd leave the Carrick Macross. I was doing it here. I'd leave at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be going down towards Clifton. I had a van full, and by the time I got to Clifton with the customers that I had, I'd have already contacted them every month to see what way. So I'd have the van full, and I'd have it empty nearly by the time I got to Clifton, and I'd be there about 12:30 after calling to a couple of places in Galway City before it got congested, and I'd supply them with the stuff, and then I'd go on and I start off in Uachtar and on, and I customers there and put a good bit of stuff into them, and the same way in my Cullen, and going on. Then the next one was a recess in County Galway. Had a customer there, but I would have put about €500 every or a pound or whatever it was every month into that place. And the same then in Clifton. So I had customers, and I had the van nearly empty, and I'd have the red mills to send 70 bags or 60 bags was in a pallet, I think, of the spot to Flynn's of Lackey, which is on the Roscommon, just going towards Tuman, just on the Roscommon Road. They'd send it on a Wednesday, and then I'd be collecting it Thursday morning, because if it was there any longer, there'd be rodents. So it
Rodents.
was nice and fresh, and I got that. I got that. Was able to load it up, and then I'd maybe send a few other items that I was short of, and then I'd have enough then to go towards Boyle. From that time, I went towards Boyle from there, and I went over the hills, if you like, and I caught some customers,
Now,
even as Sligo. So I did well, no matter where it was.
my next question is that your spot dog food was retailing at 60 pence a tin, isn't that correct?
I had it priced at 60, which was high, and I know this. They'll give you two people. The sales manager was in C&D when I was doing a fella called Feeney. He was as thick as a double ditch, and he was berating the 60.
Mhm.
But the fella that followed him congratulated me on having the foresight to put 60 on the pit and then reduce it, and be able to put stickers, reduced by 5p, or to maybe sell it at 49, and they still make a bit of profit. So I was able to use it to advantage. And then if someone wanted to sell it at 60, well, go ahead. And they did sell it at 60.
Yes. So,
I sold a lot of it.
and then
And I had Julie. What?
what was the profit margin like?
Well, the profit margin was like of the order of about 20% for me net,
Okay.
allowing for discount, and allowing for nod promotion and so on and so forth. I was doing all right.
You were doing all right, absolutely.
Doing pretty well, thank you very much. And I sold it then to another individual when I retired. I advertised for a bit. I advertised in the local papers in Westmead, probably get one or two of them, and I got buyers but I got one then that paid the price, and he was to pay 25,000 then 12 months afterwards. But part of the reason for that was that my accountant, who was good, Frank Lafferty, he had an office in Carrickmacross, and for some fucking reason he had that fella doing 1 year doing the books, and he was another fella as thick as a double ditch, and he made a bags of it. And that was the balance thing that it was. You had to pay. I had to pay profit tax or something, which I
Mhm.
should have had to pay, because he made a dreadful mistake, the fellow in Carrickmacross, and it cost me dearly. I got money for the thing, but I didn't get the 25,000, because of the mistake that he made. You couldn't go to court with that, because his accountant found that out very quick.
Okay, so
And Frank
uh,
Lafferty apologized. I could have got Frank
I
Lafferty.
just want
That what?
I just wanted because we're running out of time. There's one thing at the very end here that I want to talk to you about because it's something I've never seen on a product, and this is your own kind of customer service.
Yeah.
It says that not only was it guaranteed, but it had your own personal guarantee. What was your personal guarantee?
Uh, the personal guarantee was keep your dog happy with Spot. Uh, Satisfaction and goodness guaranteed. That's something you can put in without having to have all sorts of whatever it is. And then I think I signed it somewhere. So that
Okay.
was the guarantee. And it was on the back. And I had it in such a way that no matter where you had it, I think the label, you could see it on both sides. You didn't, so it was very effective when it was on display. Yes,
Well, it
really.
sounds like you were running a very tidy operation, and fair play to you. You worked very, very hard, and you did
Very
it for many
tidy,
years.
yeah, very tidy, yeah. So, I mean, I know about this, but what I do know is that a lot of the family stores are, because of the policy of Micheál Martin, that's Gowner, he did away with the below cost grocery order. And that protected the independent stores that the multiples couldn't send, the like of Lidl and Aldi and all these other ones couldn't sell stuff below cost. He did away with that. So the next thing is they're selling stuff below cost. And of course, the family stores couldn't be doing that. And there was great wholesalers there. And the stocked Irish products, fruit field and chippers, and they would be packed with, and lamb's jams. They all went
That's
because the
it.
multiples, they couldn't supply them with what we're looking for.
Now we're running out of time, so I just want to
Yeah,
say thank you very much. We will discuss your military career in another video, perhaps at another stage. But yes, on Spot Dog
yeah,
Food, it's still out there. It's been there since 1947. You took it over, you made a great success of it, and then you passed it on to somebody else, and they've obviously made a great
the mighty,
success.
and the phrase is the mighty legend is back. That was the phrase that I used.
Very good, very ambitious, and a very great story. Thank you very much, John Malone.
Yeah, it's a good story.
Okay, bye
Thanks,
now.
Oliver.
Bye.
Dearly boy.